generally, and in city politics specifically. I think that increase in city politics, for the most part, everyone would agree is a very healthy development, but it does bring some challenges in terms of a forum like this and having an opportunity to hear from everyone. Because I think you can understand why from looking at the long banquet table in front of you. So I guess the good news is that there are only about half as many candidates seeking at-large seats for Boston City Council as there are Democrats running for president. The bad news is that still means there's a dozen or so candidates. And I say bad again only in the sense of us having time to hear from everyone. It's great to see so many people throwing their hats in the ring, being willing to step up and put themselves forward to their fellow Bostonians as candidates. And so we'll to have them here and have this event. And but what it does mean, I have to sort of forewarn, is that we're going to be, and I guess that means we, meaning I, am going to have to be particularly ruthless about enforcing time limits on candidates, which I know is something that politicians often toil at. There we go. We'll get to that. But I'm sort of trying to hope that we'll invoke positive thinking, and so think of this not as a constraint, but that we're providing an opportunity for you to sharpen your talking points by delivering them succinctly. So a few thanks before we start. We're grateful first of all to our host, Benjamin Franklin Institute of Technology, and then also the many sponsors of the forum. I'll read them off here. They're not miss any of them. The Boston Ward 4 and Ward 5 Democratic Committees, the Ellis South End Neighborhood Association, Greater Boston Young Democrats, Mass Vote, Asian Pacific Islander Civic Association, Chinese Progressive Association, the Castle Square Tenants Organization, the Ellis Memorial School, and the Boston Sun. We're also grateful to the media sponsor of tonight's forum, the Boston Guardian. And of course, we're grateful to all of you for taking time to attend. And last but not least, the candidates who are willing to put their name on the forum here tonight. So I'm just going to quickly review the format. First of all, what the format will not entail will be me asking a question that we then go down the row and have each candidate deliver 2 or 3 minutes response on that. I think we get glassy-eyed quickly and we'd be here till midnight at that rate. So what we're going to do is start out by allowing the candidate to have 60 seconds for an opening statement. After that, we're going to move to a question and answer phase that I'll read, and each candidate will be, for the lack of a better way to describe it, the primary responder to one question. So that candidate will have 60 seconds to answer a question. I'm then going to give the other candidates all an opportunity to weigh in, but briefly, for 30 seconds at the most. And candidates shouldn't feel obligated to weigh in on every question, but everyone will be given a chance to sort of follow on to the answer by the primary responder. And so by structuring things that way, we're hoping to get to, I'm not sure the count right now, I think there might be 9 or 10. And so we'll get to that, as many candidates as we have, we'll get to that many topics and questions. And we'll then give each candidate 30 seconds for a closing statement. Just to kind of remind everybody the kind of important dates that these candidates are running for one of the 4 at-large seats on the City Council. The preliminary election is September 24th. And the field will be narrowed to 8 candidates. You can vote for up to 4 candidates. The 8 top finishers will go on to the final election November 5th, where 4 top finishers are elected seats. The forum is being live streamed on the Facebook page of the Ward 4 Democratic Committee, and also recorded for posterity and for reviewing later by those who couldn't be here, or by everyone who wants to, it's kind of like you go home and watch the Red Sox on fast replay, and you can go home and watch the whole thing again. And for anyone tweeting, feel free to use the sort of generic hashtag used for Boston political matters, such as Boss Policy. that, we thought we'd go in reverse alphabetical order. And so that means we'll start with Michel.
Councilor-At-Large, now serving in my third term. The city of Boston is at a crossroads on so many ways, and the issues and the communities that are represented with this forum and this set of communities coming together really demonstrate the vast range of those issues. We are a city that is facing deep inequities, racial disparities, deep challenges when it comes to climate justice, and I'm someone who wants to see the city exercise our full authority to do whatever action we can as soon as we can do it. That means ordinances that we are filing and passing that are leading the way. That means programming, and most of all, that means transparency and getting everyone in. So respectfully ask for your vote, and I'm very glad to see everyone here.
voices so that we can co-design and legislate collectively. That's what I want to make. Thank you for having me today.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lozano, and people ask why am I running for city council-at-large? I'm running because I believe that it's my purpose. For the past 7 to 8 years, I've prepared and I've groomed myself for this role. I plan to run my candidacy and my campaign off of 6 core values. The first one being representation, making sure that everyone in the city of Boston has a seat at the table and that their issues are not only heard but they're addressed. Empowerment of small business owners and the nonprofit organizers and organizations who do the everyday hands-on work. Sustainability, to make sure that everyone that's from the city of Boston can remain in the city of Boston. Diversity and inclusion, not only just with housing, but with jobs and everything. Equality for people of color, for all Boston residents, including the LGBTQ community. And of course, advancement of our city. So I hope to get your vote September 24th. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thank you for coming out today. My name is William King. I'm a lifelong resident of Boston, growing up in Mattapan, Bronx area, and Dorchester. I'm a product of the Boston Public Schools, and once I left Boston Public Schools, I started working there at the same school that I graduated from, at Boston Academy. I'm running to make Boston inclusive for everyone, so that everyone feels welcome, so that everyone can get a quality education, so that everyone can afford to live in this city. There are too many people getting priced out, including my own family. And then there's you have the opioid crisis that's going on, and I want to help people get the treatment that they need. So I respectfully ask for one of you for votes on September 24th. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. How you doing? That's good. My name is Halbert, and I want to be one of your next Boston City Councilors at large. And the reason I want to be in that role is because I know that is an incredible platform from which to help others. And I know that because I worked there. 10 years ago, I served under Sam Newman and John Hogan as an aide, and since then I've gone on and spent 7.5 years with the Middlesex Sheriff's Office, where I worked as the Deputy Director of Community Affairs. And what I've learned in all of my time, preceding that at the State House, working for Paul Patrick, is that government works best when we bring it to you. It's not just about us having ideas and pitching them to you and trying to lead you. It's about working with you as partners. So that's really what I want to do on the City Council. I want to work each and every day to democratize information to make sure that you as citizens have everything you need to ask the most pointed questions that you can to get the best kind of government that you deserve. That's what I'm working for. That's what I hope to have during this conversation across this evening, and that's why I hope that you'll give me your vote on September 24th. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out. My name is Priscilla Flint-Banks, and I would love to have one of your 4 at-large votes on September 24th. I'm a product of Boston Public Schools. I grew up in Roxbury. I hold a master's in education. I worked in the city of Boston for 17 years running their Keogh. I'm a founding member of the organization Housing Justice and Equality, the Black Economic Justice Institute, and the Rural Power Planning Commission. I have done advocacy work. I have helped strengthen the Boston job policy when they were out of compliance. Me and my husband formed an organization and we protested the Bruce Bowling building because they were not being the ordinance was not being enforced. So we fought for it. We got to strengthen it. With the Power Commission, we worked along Little Ave, stopping liquor stores from coming into Boston, helping developers build laundromats, and shutting down Stop and Shop for heavy loaders.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the co-sponsors. My name is Michael Flaherty. I'm with City Council.
excited to be in this race. It's an opportunity to talk about my record and how I'm guided by progressive principles. Whether it was defeating Dr. O'Neill, being very first to support the marriage equality with the LGBTQ community, long before the Goodrich decision, partnering with colleagues on the Trust Act, on the first ever lobbying legislation here in the city with my colleague, Councilor Wu, whether it was taking the lead on CPA, Community Preservation Act, first when it failed and the second when it passed, whether it's been on the legislative capacity, the budgetary capacity, or the basic city service capacity. I love this job, an honor and privilege to serve you. I'd love to go back for another term and ask for your consideration and support, and look forward to the questions this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Michel, Denis. So I'm from Haiti. So the reason why I wanted, because when I was in high school, so I see like the student kind of left behind. I think that it's going to get more program for them and to teach them about climate change. And I mean, like, because like I'm kind of like a west over there, here, because like we need more affordable housing for the residents, because it is affecting too. Because I think that a lot of people can understand that some people they live here, they work here, but it's hard for them to move in other city because of the price money for housing. And I'm willing to get your vote in September.
Thank you. Staying within the time limits. That reminds me of two other quick housekeeping things I should have mentioned. One is that we have the timekeeper at the front, and so they will, for the people who have a minute for the primary respondents, the card will be held up at 30 seconds, and when it gets to the final moment, you will hear and that tells you time to wrap up. The other thing that I neglected to mention is, as we go through the questions for each candidate, for some of them, we're going to follow that up with a few quick lightning round questions on related topics in that subject area. So that will mix things up a little bit and hopefully be also a chance to kind of quickly hear from all the candidates on a greater number of issues. So for the primary questions, we're also, again, trying to mix things up a little bit. So we thought we would start these questions by going alphabetically by first name. And I tried to do this standing up here. If I've screwed up, it's going to be embarrassing. But by my reckoning, Alejandra St. Guillen would be first. And so you'll get the first question that you get 60 seconds to answer. And then after that, everyone will have a chance to respond. So Mayor Walsh just recently proposed an update to the so-called Trust Act that would strengthen the language of this ordinance that involves limiting the involvement of Boston police in federal immigration enforcement activities. Is his proposal enough? And if not, what more would you want to see done at the city level on this issue?
No. So I think it's a great first step. You know, I was very happy to have drafted the first Trust Act, and at the time the most progressive Trust Act, and one of the most progressive Trust Act in the countries, and that it didn't have a lot of exceptions. I think recent events have shown that we needed to enforce a Trust Act we need to expand the Trust Act to include the limiting of information sharing between the Boston Police and ICE. I think it's an important first step, but there are many issues that we need to see to make sure that's implemented. The City Council should have strong oversight to make sure that anytime that information is shared with ICE, that we know why, we know when, and we know how it happened. In addition, I think there has to be an act specific to the school to deportation pipeline. And so this is specific to the school reports that are showing up in deportation files of young people, particularly from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras.
Perfect. So now we're going to give everyone a chance, and we'll start sort of to the left of the questioner, and then we'll loop back around. So Michelle Wu, would have the first chance. If you want to chime in again briefly, no more than 30 seconds, and then we'll come around and go down the line.
We know that in Boston, our immigrant residents represent such a large proportion of the population. I think it's almost 1 in 4 residents. And so when we are, 27%, the expert says. And so when we are strengthening our immigrant neighbors, we are really lifting up the entire economy. And so I want to make sure everyone's seeing this issue not just as we're helping this isolated group, or even that this is just about morals. This is really about the safest, most greatest prosperity for the entire community.
We come back down to the sense of Michel, Denis. Sure. So the question has to do with the mayor recently proposed updating an ordinance called the Trust Act that has to do with limiting the involvement of Boston police in federal immigration enforcement actions. Do you support that update? And I guess more specifically, do you think it goes far enough? And if not, are there further steps you think should be taken at the city level dealing with this issue?
Yes, because as immigrant from Haiti, I think that there are a lot of people in Boston who kind of affect from that. I think that is gonna be a good thing, like to make sure that the ICE do not come to Boston and deport some people, because a lot of people, they kind of like invest in this country to pay taxes. So I think it's a thing that we have to secure and
one of Boston's greatest strengths is its diversity, and I know that our immigrants play a huge role in making the city that a great city that it is. I'm proud to have supported the first version as the chair of government operations, working with lead sponsor, my colleague, City Councilor-At-Large, and played a role in terms of bridging the difference between some of the concerns that the police department had as well as the sheriff's department have. And it was sort of an 11th hour compromise that I helped broker on behalf of the council, working with the mayor's office to make the Trust Act a reality. And the new latest version will be introduced to the council tomorrow, and we'll see what's being asked to strengthen it.
I believe that it is a good first step, but I believe that there is a lot more work that can be done to strengthen it, and I would work with the mayor and the rest of the council to ensure that it is done and it's done fairly.
I also do believe it's a good first step, but I think that as we're thinking about those subsequent next steps, we have to make sure that we are inclusive in the conversation, that we're including those people who, from those communities that have been pushed into the shadows, to make sure that their voices are heard at the table, so that we're incorporating their thoughts, ideas, concerns, and fears into our policy development process. But I think that this is critical because it makes our streets safer. We want people to feel that they can turn to members of law enforcement if there are crimes in their communities, if they are feeling victimized themselves, to make sure that not only are they safer, but all their neighbors are safer. So.
Hi, I'm Marty Keogh. I got here late.
Is there any way we can spread out a little more?
There's too many candidates. We need to whittle this down to 8.
I think you're at the kids' table back there.
All right, Mike, what was the question again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. I heard all the answers, but I actually did not hear the question.
It's that the mayor's recently proposed updating an ordinance called the Trust Act that has to do with limiting Boston police involvement with federal immigration enforcement.
Okay, I'll tell you, first of all, I mean, we're all sons, grandsons, granddaughters, great-granddaughters, or great-grandsons of our immigrants, number one, so I'm pro-immigration. But this act here has to be completely restudied. If you're gonna take the power away from the Boston police to do their jobs, you can't do that. I do agree that the police probably need to be a lot more respectful of people that they question, but this act here, from what I see on it, it's going to strip the police of their power to keep this community safe.
I believe it's a good first step. I feel like when we empower and protect immigrants, that makes us stronger as a city. So I do think this is a good first step, and we need to, the way we take it further is just finding a way that's for police and the community to work together and trust one another.
So I also think that it's a good first step. As a child of an immigrant family, my father's family derives from Honduras. He also served in this city as a Boston police officer for over 30 years. I think that we can do more to protect people's human rights, not just as immigrants. I'm aware that there's also legislation being proposed on the state level that will also prohibit the Boston Police Department from working with ICE. And I think that we should also protect people's rights to come here and be productive citizens. There are many people who are known as dreamers who come here, they work as students, and they work as professionals. So I think it's a great first step.
I agree with my colleagues. It's definitely a great first step in the right direction, but I think going back to what David Halbert said, I think that for me it's really all about transparency and the role that those who are most impacted play in shaping policies, which is the way I've been leading my campaign. I think that we have an opportunity to bring that back and review it a little bit further and making sure that all voices have an opportunity to talk about what we can do differently, more specifically in Boston Public Schools. I know that there's some questions that are asked in terms of where do you live, where were you born, and I think that we have an opportunity to kind of revamp all city documentation so everyone can feel safe, and I took extra time, sorry.
So, kind of echoing what a lot of people said, but I definitely feel like all of our residents should feel safe, and immigrants should not worry about turning to the police if they're afraid that it will come back that they're not here legally. So I definitely feel that. Also, as a school teacher, I've seen families come to me and they're worried. Questions are asked of them, and they don't always want to answer truthfully because they're afraid it will come back to hurt them. So I think that schools, police, we should make sure all of our residents feel safe.
Many of you know I've been practicing immigration law for the last 17 years, so I have firsthand been in immigration court and seen the effects of some of these policies on people, and I've been fighting against it for the last 17 years. I mean, the path forward really is to make sure that we build trust and accountability among the law enforcement and local communities and make sure that folks do feel safe. And I fought the secured communities thing on a statewide level and also on the Boston level, so I'm definitely a partner with immigrant communities and helping stabilize those families.
So we have one a lightning round question on this topic, and we'll start with Alejandra, and we'll move in the same, well, actually, let's go in the opposite direction again. So the question is, do you support allowing non-citizens with legal status, in other words, green card holders, the right to vote in municipal elections?
Just yes or no?
Yep.
Okay, yes.
Thank you. Yes.
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 Absolutely.
Yes. I think we need to look at it further.
Yes.
I think we need to look at it further also.
No.
No.
Yes.
Okay, great. So if my alphabetization skills are serving me right, I think David Halbert would be next with a question. So the question, David, has to do with police and community relations, and sort of broadly speaking, what should the city be doing better to improve relations between police and the community, and in particular between police and communities of color, which is an issue that has obviously been top of concern here and nationally?
Sure. Well, I think the Boston Police Department does a lot that's good in that area. I just ran a conference, the People of Color Criminal Justice Conference, where Commissioner Ross was our keynote speaker, and he and I spoke about it. But we have to be candid about many of the deficiencies that are still there, particularly around communities of color. I think the first is we have to do everything we can to make sure that not just our police department, but all of our public safety agencies are really as reflective as they can be of the cities and communities that they serve. And so we have to take affirmative steps for them. I'm very happy to see that Boston Police has brought back the cadet program. I think there's a way to go even further with that by incorporating high schools with agencies like Boston Fire, Denis, and the police department to start at the root level and give students pathways, because we know that will help diversify our workforce at that level and continue to translate that across the city. I also think we need to have very, very intentional conversation around implicit bias, around the effects of implicit bias on law enforcement and execution of criminal justice policy. And as well, we need to have cultural competency understanding for each and every member.
I'm a big supporter of the Boston Police and the police in general. What I'd like to see are the city would hire about 200 cops per year over the next 5 years. I'd like to see that police force, all these new recruits, be reflective of the community. For example, if it's 51% people of color in the city, I want to see 51% Boston Police people of color. I'd like the police to extend their community relations a little bit further than the way they're going. I think they're doing a great job right now. And again, I'm a big supporter of the Boston Police, but I do respect the rights of the citizens of Boston.
I think what we need to do is restore that trust between underserved communities and the police department by incorporating events throughout the year, like cookouts, barbecues, sporting events. And I think if we can all get together and just get on the same page, we work to restore that trust. And also stop stigmatizing unserved communities as bad.
I would also agree that the Boston Police Department needs to have more cultural competency when it comes to communities of color, when it comes to the city of Boston. I would also agree that I think it's a great thing that they brought back the cadet program. I would like to see more men and women of color, more people that are bilingual also enrolling into the cadet program. I also think there needs to be a bridge between the Boston Police Department and the local community leaders, the stakeholders in those communities who know the residents, who know the happenings in our communities and within our city.
Maybe you want to stand up when I talk. A lot of the things that have already been said, I echo. I think the only thing that I would like to add is that having been someone who has lost family members to violence, I think that oftentimes the response rate and knowing whether or not where things stand in terms of the crime or whether the homicide has been solved, I think a lot of communities of color are still waiting to hear what's going on. I think we could do a better job in terms of responding to that. And I also think, again, going back to the whole idea of civic engagement and accountability, I think that we need to have more data information out there in terms of what's happening. And was that my bell?
So I definitely appreciate when I see the bike patrol in the neighborhood. So I think community policing and bike patrol and mending that relationship between some community members and the police would be very important. And going forward with the cadets and the new police hires, I think diversifying is very important, that our police force should look like our neighborhoods, and that would be helpful. I support that.
We have one of the most educated police forces in the entire country, and we're fortunate to have that. I think that one of the challenges that we face is destigmatizing the idea that folks, destigmatizing the idea that folks from our communities are getting into the cadet program and recruiting new folks from across the neighborhoods, and we have to continue to do that work. Cultural competency, and I'm a big supporter of community policing. I like that model. I think it works.
I think that some of the things that we can do if we look at the early criminalization of young men of color, this often leads to recidivism and mistrust within the community. I think that we can look at bringing back a civilian review board. We do need more diversity within the department, and I support the Rollins do not prosecute list, and I think that the police, we have to think about alternatives to arrest, and also taking out the Boston police from the Boston public schools.
Community policing is really the foundation of building that trust, and that concept, that model started here in Boston. We have gone and taken it all across the country, teaching other departments how to do that, so we need to keep improving on that. That happens at a officer by officer level with more diversity, the cadet program, and direct pipelines for Boston residents. It's also about policies that ensure accountability. I called for a hearing on surveillance and requiring the police to have community-driven, council-approved policies in place before acquiring or deploying new surveillance technology, whether it's body cameras, drones, or anything else. We need more along that line.
I believe that because Boston was the first city to get Boston Police, so I believe that we need more diverse police, because I'm from Haiti, because there are a lot of people from different countries, but when police come to the house, they cannot even understand them. But if we have more police from different countries, I think that would be better to connect the city with the police officers.
I think the mayor deserves some credit here. It's one thing to have the department look like the face of the city, but the command staff really needs to be reflective of the city, and this is the most diverse command staff the city has ever seen, in large part because of our mayor and his policies. I'd like to say that community policing is working. We're a model across the country, but it really starts in each and every one's district. Having a good, strong leader as your captain and having a good, strong community service officer makes a world of difference in terms of the outreach, and I think the body cameras will also assist us in at least disarming folks, if you will, and engaging and allowing them to engage in more conversations.
So I believe in community policing. I believe in the Civilian Review Board. I also believe that we should have forums 3 or 4 times a year so that we can talk to our young folks, so we can bring them in and hear what they have to say and how they feel about what is going on. And as far as the cadet program, I really like it. I think there should be more diversity training around it, and I really believe that trauma services to our community. When someone is shot and killed on our streets, a lot of times it takes forever for the police to get there.
Okay, great. So, Erin Murphy is next. So, Erin, what are the most important steps in your view that Boston could be taking to address the opioid crisis and addiction crisis more generally?
So, a little bit about, okay, sorry.
All in 1 minute.
Sure. Yes, 1 minute. So, thank you for asking me that question. My son Brian, a few years ago, was struggling with addiction, and the one big thing that I think stopped or hindered his recovery was that it was stigmatized. We kept it a secret. We'd go to the hospital. We didn't know where to turn. So once we found the services that were helpful and realized that families need to know that we need to be supportive of them and we need to help all children. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous, but I'm going to start it. So what would, the steps that would help is, one is to rebuild the Long Island Bridge. My son was on Long Island the night it shut down, so I saw what happens when your detox, when your recovery is interrupted. So the Long Island Bridge, addressing the Mejia Cass Boulevard in you can't drive down Mass Ave, Mejia Cass, and not feel pain for what you see, but I think it's not just those struggling, it's the business owners, it's the school, it is also, the school children down the street, it's the neighbors and, the people in the neighborhood. We need to address that.
Thank you. Jeff Ross.
I think that we need to continue to treat this as a disease rather than a crime, and make sure that we're out there providing the support. I'm a supporter of redistributing some of the resources that are accessible for treatment and recovery across the city, and also making folks aware of harm reduction and extending the time that folks are actually in detox and able to get services, and looking at ways that we can have transitional housing and workforce training and development sort of wrapped into that, and look at what populations are progressing and get those populations that are progressing to the next step.
I think a lot of it is around prevention and making sure that we have culturally and linguistically appropriate methods for prevention. We also have to think of the safety of current users, so safe injection sites as a way of preserving that safety. We also have to think of the expansion of recovery services, and part of that is the decriminalization of drug offenses will help people succeed when they re-enter into the society, when they're looking for housing and looking for jobs.
We need to keep pushing for funding for treatment on demand from the state and the federal government. I think the city's role in speaking up now and really getting at the source and joining the potential to join lawsuits for towards the pharmaceutical companies for more accountability on prescriptions and the way that opiates have been pushed out. And then again, it's about managing the mental health and trauma that often drives people to seek opiates or to use opiates in the first place, and that I think is more of where the city can provide that support, expanding those services.
I believe that we have to get more resources for and more programs for those people who kind of affected, and those people, like when they get affected, we need to know how we can help them out and in the program, and then we can give them more access to jobs and housing, because some of them, they want to get jobs, some of them want to get treatment, but they want to have someone to help them out. So I think that if we get more funding for them, I think that would be the best way to help them.
I've been a staunch supporter of treatment on demand, and I think Long Island, building the bridge to Long Island Shelter will do just that, providing opportunities not just in a detox setting, but also in aftercare, and also holding doctors and pharmaceuticals accountable for overprescribing. I guess gone are the days when someone would say ice and some Tylenol, everyone hits you with the gas on the opioids. We're at a public health crisis. We're at risk of losing a generation, and we need treatment on demand, and we need it now.
Could you please repeat the question for me?
What steps do you think Boston could be taking to better address the opioid addiction crisis and addiction issues more broadly?
So I think that we should be building more facilities for care. I also believe that we should look at the budget and see where we could get the money from. And also I believe that we should look at working with our medical professionals to see, and our DA and our mayor, to see how we could actually put together a great program that will help our constituents.
I think that the issue around opioids, like so many issues, is really one that does not respect borders, and that's one thing that we have to understand. If you go down to the intersection of Mass Avenue and Cass, you know that many of those people are Boston residents, but a significant number of them aren't. So we have to be working interdisciplinarily. So from the city standpoint, we need to be working with providers such as the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office, where the majority of people have substance abuse issues, as well as our healthcare providers, but also with our surrounding communities. A lot of people have brought up Long Island Bridge, but if we're not having substantive conversations with neighbors like in Quincy, we're not going to be able to get things moving the way we need to.
This is one of those no-brainer solutions. We need more money, we need more facilities. I've had a few relatives and many friends that have lost to addiction. The one thing I'd like to say about the other Marty Walsh, thank God he's getting that Long Island Bridge thing over. I can't believe that Quincy can push us around for the last couple of years. We need strong leadership to get this addiction problem under control, and I think Marty Walsh is doing a great job.
So this is an issue that is pretty personal for me because it claimed the life of my sister. So I want to see the people get the help that they need. You know, we want to rebuild that bridge to Long Island, but in the meantime, we need some place for people to go to get the treatment that they need. We have the Shattuck Hospital that has 255 beds in it, and all services are moving out of there by 2021. So I think that's a great place to start for a facility.
I think the first thing that we need to understand is that not only the opioid crisis, but drug addiction is a generational curse. Something that has affected our communities and our families for years, probably longer than I've ever even been alive. I think we also need to provide them with more transitional services. It does us no good to imprison folks that have an addiction, because it doesn't help them rehabilitate. It only causes more recidivism. So I think we need more transitional services. We know that when people are in a crisis, when people are dealing with finances, then they turn to drugs as a coping mechanism.
I would have to agree with everyone. But one of the things that I wanted to just stand out is that there's a lot of issues around stigma. I lost my cousin to an overdose, and no one wanted to talk about it at home, because that's what we do. We put things underneath the rug. And I think we have an opportunity to kind of really amplify reducing the stigma. But more importantly, I think there was two things that I'd like to say. One is we can't put Sharpies near schools. We have to be more strategic about where we're going to place those Sharpies. And then the other piece of it is that I think we can consider a citywide strategy that we're looking at all of our departments.
Great, thanks. So the next question will be for Herb Lozano. So Herb, the City Council in Boston has become, I think many people would say, more outspoken in recent years, and just as the size of the panel of candidates here indicates, there's increased interest in the council and in running for seats. But with that said, Boston, as I think most people know, operates under a strong mayor form of government, and it's one in which it's been 70 years since an incumbent mayor was defeated, sort of a measure of the power of the office. Would you favor changes to the city charter that would balance that mayoral power with more clout for the council? And if so, what changes would you support?
I would absolutely support that. I do see that the mayor has a lot of power when it comes to the city budget, which in my community, we lack resources, we lack funding, we lack all of those possible things that can come from funding throughout the city budget. And also as a resident, as a constituent in the city of Boston, I see that there's a lot of conflict between our city council and our mayor. A lot of times they can't get on the same page, they can't agree when it comes to the city budget. So I would like to see some mending in that relationship between those two elected bodies. Some of the things that I would like to see the city council be able to do is to be able to affect more of the city's departments, be able to offer those services, those resources. One of the large issues that happens in our community is around education. And I don't think that the city council has enough power or enough authority to be able to dictate how our youth are educated.
Julia? We're going to just go around. And if you have, specifics, if you would change something, can you point to a way you've changed the structure of city government?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that
Try to hold the mic a little closer. I'm hearing that some people aren't projecting.
Hello?
There we go.
Let that show the record. Restart. I do agree. I think that we need to revisit the city charter. I think that oftentimes I even look at the school, the board, the school committee. I think that we need to recognize that at the end of the day, when one person is making decisions on behalf of everyone, then this is the times when we become a little bit. I wouldn't say this. Yes, I totally agree. We need to redistribute the power. I think that coming into the space, I just don't want to have a loud voice. I think that we have an opportunity to make more decisions.
So on one issue there, I would definitely consider and look at an elected school committee. I think the schools would have more of a say in the neighborhoods and what the families need and want if the neighborhoods and could elect their school committee members. I think that's one way we could look at the charter and the power that the mayor has. And also when you see the city council working so hard on issues and if they're not passed through or people don't see eye to eye, just to kind of look closer at how do things get passed and how can we move things forward here in the city.
Great. I just sort of interject in that the question had to do with if there's areas that you would favor seeing the city council's power increased.
In terms of the districts that we see and the populations that are here in this neighborhood, we've seen the city grow, and mostly that growth has been in our areas. And our city council district should have approximately 70,000 people. So I think we're getting to the point that where we're going to be adding city council districts and thinking about that in the future. I think that we need a strong consensus builder elected to the city council. I have some experience that with Ward 9. And then I think if, in an ideal world, if the city council were going to be stronger in power, I would say our charter reflects that of Philadelphia, and we could have the city council submit the budget to the mayor.
So a couple ideas would be power to line item budget and veto as well. I think we can, if the school committee does move to a hybrid model, making sure that the city council has appointees on that model. And I think also not just the city council should have more power, but the people of Boston should have more power, and that could be included in community elected boards, and those particularly that have power over zoning and redevelopment.
So there are a lot of little things. I would just add, for example, the charter prevents council-created commissions and boards from having council confirmation. They can only be mayorally appointed unless they're created by the state legislature. That would give the council a lot more power. The fact that mayoral vetoes can't be overridden on financial matters, that would give the council more power. But the bottom line is the council has tremendous power. I think we are starting to see in recent years, we are actually using it more and more now. We have tremendous leverage. The one place I would want to change the city structurally the most and the quickest, that would have the biggest impact, is in development. The BPDA needs to be changed. That doesn't require a charter.
Michel? The question has to do with the structure of city government. It's a strong mayor form of government, but some people have said that it should be revisited? Would you favor looking at the city charter and any changes that would balance or sort of rebalance the balance of power between the mayor and city council, favoring giving the council more clout? And if so, what specifically would you want to see in terms of new powers for the city council?
I believe that the city council should have a lot of more, not a lot of power, but a power where they can help the community, because like when you see like a lot of parents, they do not know enough about what's going on in the school. So I think that if the parents can have a lot of power to understand what's going on in the school system and get.
You can finish the sentence.
And then we can have the elected official for the school, and then that would be a better way to improve the city.
Thank you. I support term limits for mayor. I think having a strong CEO has been helpful to Boston on a number of fronts, and I also concur with my colleague, Councilor, that the council has power. It's the bully pulpit for the residents of the city, can point to a whole myriad of things that started at the council and were successful in past, and also would call for, and I have called for, a standalone planning department in the city of Boston, where we would have a plan that would be executed by the economic development arm, as opposed to, I feel that they're conflicted, having both planning and economic development under the same umbrella on the 9th floor. So term limits for mayor and also separate standalone planning department would make a huge difference.
I believe that the city council should have more say around the budget. As a city council, you are an advocate, and I believe that we should be advocating for resources for our different districts and our different communities. I also believe that that as a city councilor at large, that we should be able to, there's 13 city councils versus one mayor. I believe that we should definitely have more power and more say. And around the school committee, I believe that it should be either hybrid or elected, because one person should not have power.
Like many have stated, I do also agree that I think the city council should have more power around the budget, particularly the ability to add items at a line item level as opposed to just subtracting them right now. And that should be more of a participatory budgeting process, generally speaking, starting from the city and then working its way towards the mayor's office. I think that's all critical. But I think another thing that needs to be touched on, if we're really talking about changing the power dynamic and the structure of the city and how we operate city government, is around home rule. And having real substantive conversations about changing the home rule process so that it's not people from far outside of Boston who are really holding control and veto power over activities here in the city.
I think the strong mayor form of government is working. It's been working for quite some time. I would like the city council to get more power. I think, especially when it comes to development in downtown areas, I think another way to get to have the city council have more power is to have a few more district councils, one for the South End, one for Chinatown, one for Roxbury, one for Jamaica Plain. Right now, we've got district councils that are covering a wide area of territory. I'd like to see a few more councils on that. I'd like to see a stronger form of city council.
So I'm going to echo having more control over the budget. I think that could help with line items. But I also would say I think that the city council is pretty strong. They're the voice of the people. They represent everyone in the city. And if I had truly thought that it was a weak position to be a city councilor, this wouldn't be a position that I would be running for, because I want to have the power to help people.
Okay, great. So we've got a few lightning round questions we'll try to get through quickly in this broad topic of city government and democracy. So city councilors currently serve 2-year terms. Some have argued that 4-year terms would make more sense and would generate higher turnout, having them coincide with mayoral elections. So do you favor switching the city council term to 4 years? We'll start with Herb. Herb?
Oh, starts with me?
Sure.
Oh. I think that should be up for more review. More review.
I support
Would you support moving from the city council from a 2-year term to a 4-year term?
Can't hear you.
2-year term.
I would have to do more research, but I think 2 years is working. I do see now, though, as campaigning, that you spend a lot of your time campaigning. So if that's time not spent serving the people, then I would look into that, definitely.
I believe the city council is to work in partnership with you and is to be accountable to you, and that 2-year terms is the way it should be, and that we shouldn't create any more barriers to new candidates running for office.
All right, try to keep it short. This is the lightning round, so 2-year term or 4-year term?
I think further review, I think a referendum on the matter could work. If we did shift to 4 years, I would have the elections department use that funding to do more voter outreach and engagement during elections.
I was a single vote against moving to 4-year terms last term, and then 1 of 2 votes against it this term. 2-year terms are important because absent campaign finance reform, it allows incumbents just to bank more funding and make it harder for challenges. We would not have the diversity and representation on the council today without the off-year election cycles. That's when we've seen a lot of changeover.
Try to keep it short again.
2 years.
We'll start ringing the bell. 2
2
years?
years then.
Thank you. You win the prize.
4 years coterminous with the mayor.
I believe we should look at it and really examine it, because I believe for 2 years, 1 year you're running, and then you only get 1 year to do work. I believe if you had more time to be a city councilor, I believe you could get more work done.
Thank you.
That'll be your favorite answer, 2 years.
Thank you.
2 years. At least you'll see a council every 2 years.
2 years. Okay. So we'll go this way, and we'll start just to the right of her. So William King will lead off this one, and we're going to go around this way. So again, this is going to be not only a one-word answer, but a one-letter answer is what's called for. Mayor Marty Walsh has been in office for now almost 1.5 terms. What grade would you give him?
B.
We're going to go this way. So Marty Keogh.
Marty Walsh, let me think about it. He's a friend of mine. I'm not going to insult him.
I'd give the mayor probably a B.
C.
A minus.
C plus.
I'm not going to go with one letter. There's just too many categories to grade on. We could talk specific categories, but I won't pick one.
I agree.
I agree.
The teacher in me will definitely give them A for effort and agree with the many different categories to give it one letter.
I would probably say leaning towards a C. Needs improvement.
Okay.
I'd say a B plus.
All right. Do you support increasing voter access to fully bilingual ballots and absentee ballots for voters who do not speak or read English, including candidates' name transliterations into languages that do not use the Roman alphabet, including Chinese? So we'll start this time with Marty. We'll just kind of. Do you support increasing voter access to fully bilingual ballots and absentee ballots for city elections? We're going this way. So David?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, led the effort on the transliteration of Chinese ballots.
Yes.
Michel?
Yes.
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 Yes, and a push more for online voting, which would help the translation.
C, and that means yes in Spanish.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So we're trying to mix things up and lighten things up a little, or maybe enlighten people in different ways. So this question, and we're going to start with, is it Marty? Did you have the first last time? We're going around with a lightning round again. Tell us a Bostonian, either current or going back as far in history as you want, who you particularly admire.
Benjamin Franklin.
We're going this way. Yeah.
Elma Lewis.
Melania Cass.
the late great Congressman Joe Moakley.
I'm a Louis because I believe in art. Because I'm from Haiti, people in Haiti love art a lot, so I think I'm a Louis.
Sarah Anshaw.
I would say Yadires Nova Sacedo.
Chilled Hassan.
I would say Richard J. Murphy, my grandfather, who started the first neighborhood association in the city.
I'd say the Reverend Liz Walker.
I would also say Mania Cass.
I would say Governor Mike Dukakis.
Okay. So now we're moving to the next question, and it'll be for Jeffrey Ross. So Jeff, the building boom in Boston has meant tens of millions of dollars in new revenue flowing into the city's coffers. It's really hard to say that Boston is starved for cash, yet there are always more claims on that money than there are dollars available. So where have we been spending money that we don't need to, and what have we been shortchanging that we could address by redirecting those funds?
I mean, I've been out there. I mean, I struggled with learning issues when I was growing up, and the first two girls that I worked with, we got them wraparound services, counselor, psychologist, and the eldest is now in medical school because of the weight was lifted off. So I would say that I would like to see services. We got 22 new school nurses. I would like to see more psychologists and school counselors to intervene in the lives of our youths earlier on.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I know it's a long one.
So it's just saying Boston's booming, there's a lot of money coming into the city coffers, but there's sort of seemingly never enough money for the demands on it. But with that said, we're really not starved for cash the way some cities are, or the way we could be in the depths of a recession. So, you know, where would you say we're spending money that we don't need to be spending, and where would you like to see sort of money redirected?
So I think there is probably some money that's in the central office of BPS that could be spent more wisely or redirected. I think also the strong oversight of our pilot payments also need to be implemented. So we have these fees that institutions are paying in lieu of taxes, but they haven't been fully paying into that, and also the linkage fees as well. So a lot of this is actually within the realm of the city council because a lot of it has to do with oversight.
When you look at the city budget, the vast majority of the funding is going to people and employees that we have. So much of it is tied up. I'd say one place that we are still pushing for more progress is around overtime, because when we are asking public safety, police and fire, mostly police, to do overtime, it costs more than if we necessarily expanded the capacity or matched that better. And what are we shortchanging? Education. I've done a tour now of almost every single Boston Public High School. It is staggering, the disparities, but also staggering the conditions that some of our students and teachers have to face on a daily basis.
I believe education, because that will help a lot of young people. Young people have disability, and public safety too, because that will help those kids to learn about climate change, and I think that will be able to help the resident to understand the community better by enforcing the police. Give I more police, I think. That's what I believe.
Hi, I apologize for being late. I'm Anissa Essaibi-George, At-Large City Councilor. I had two other commitments this evening. Councilor Flaherty here gave me a quick rundown. As the Chair of Education, the Chair of Homelessness, Mental Health, and Recovery, I think one place where we're mishandling some of our funds is around our school spending. It's a $1.4 billion budget, and we have cost overruns and things like transportation every year, and that has to come from somewhere. It could be coming from full-time nurses in all of our school buildings, and certainly the need for more mental health professionals.
We spend millions more than we need to with school transportation, also with contractual services and outside counsel when we have our own lawyers. Where we should be directing additional funds is affordable housing. We're talking about this unprecedented economic development boom. Lots of companies want to come here, CEOs moving their companies here, lots of great buzz, but the people that made the great city that it is are having a very difficult time affording to live here. So we need to do more in the area of making Boston more affordable.
So I agree about the education system. I ran the payroll for over 17 years, and I tell you, there's a lot of waste in Boston Public Schools. Also, tax credits for these large companies that are coming and promising this and promising that and don't deliver. Also, enforcing the pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, as well as linkage fees.
I agree around education, and especially around the amount of tax incentives and monies that we're giving away to large developers. Areas that we could be reinvesting monies, I think really focusing on our small businesses and how we're growing and supporting them. We know the small businesses form the core of our communities and all of our neighborhoods, providing opportunities for jobs for people, especially people who often are on the fringes or in the shadows. So I believe that if we can direct more funds there to support those kind and grow those kind of businesses in our communities, we'll be better off as a city.
There's a little bit of waste and mismanagement all over city government and in the school department. When I get my hands on the budget, I'd like to see where I can find it and redistribute it over into affordable housing programs and jobs for kids in our city.
I would work to enforce a pilot. Have you guys seen the budget? You have to be an accountant to read it. So I would, it has to be transparency. You have to have line items. You have to be able to read it so that you can look at it and tell exactly where your dollars are going and reallocate them where they're needed.
I think there's many areas within our city that are being shortchanged. Of course, education. We have not invested into our youth as much as we need to, not only in education, but during the summer months when it comes to youth jobs and employment. Of course, mental health and wellness services. We can also do a lot more investing there, making sure that we're putting money into the families, into the people of our city. And of course, small businesses and nonprofits. That's the economic wellness of our city. As long as we can grow and develop our small businesses, we can see some economic development and more jobs.
Agree with what I've heard so far. I just would like to say that I think that in terms of education, being the first person in my family to graduate high school, 30 years later, I still see that we are shortchanging. I went to every single Boston public school you could imagine as well. I think that we need to pour more money into our education system. And then I think there are lots of great programs in the city of Boston, but the problem is that a lot of people don't even know about them. Even becoming the first-time homeowners program, I think that we need to do a better job at communicating what services we have and how people can actually access them.
Definitely feel that way too, that there's a lot of money in the budget, there's a lot of services that not all of our residents know are available to them, so to be a voice for people and advocate. Definitely mental health and recovery services and housing, but with the schools, the school budget is the big, a lot of money is spent on the schools, and they do not serve all of the students that go there. We have students with dyslexia who leave the city. We have Madison Park High, we have cranes all over our city, but we have a vote tech that has empty seats, so we need to address that.
Great, thanks. So, Julia Mejia is next up. So, Julia, what specific steps or reforms could we be pursuing to close the achievement gap in our schools?
Yes, very good question here. So I think one of the things that I see often in our schools is the school to prison pipeline. There are a lot of students who are not able to access the curriculum because they're going to school hungry. I think that we need to be more mindful of how we're going to support students who are experiencing trauma and being more responsive to their needs. I think that we need to also see how we can increase the diversity in our schools. It's not just about having more black and brown teachers in front of our students, but also looking at the leadership of all of our schools. I think that when you have people who are in front of you who are reflective of your own lived experience. And then I also think that, for me, I'm a big supporter of the Promise Act. I think that if we can get some of those state dollars here in the city of Boston, we might be able to see a shift in terms of the resources that we see here. And then I think lastly, we need to have more of a political will and recognizing that at the end of the day, we need to do all that we can to ensure that no matter what neighborhood you live in, whether it's Roxbury or West Roxbury, South End, or the West End, that you have the type of quality of education in every school.
Thanks. We'll move to Erin. I'm being told that people in the back are having a hard time hearing, so if I could just ask if people can speak close into the mic, and I don't know if there's any way to boost the volume on the speakers. because I do hear people coming out of the speakers behind me, but that
This way's fine. Okay, definitely. So as a teacher in Boston for over 20 years now, I've seen what happens when not all of our students get the services they need. I definitely feel that many children come to school with trauma and the staff is not ready or certified. They're not prepared to deal with that. I recently did a 200-hour yoga teacher training that focused on trauma-informed practices, and it really opened my eyes to making sure that we know how to address those issues that the students come to us and treat them respectfully.
Thanks. I'm just going to sort of reminder again, the question has to do with what specific steps could we take or reforms that would zero in on and address the achievement gap?
I'm definitely supportive of the Promise Act and getting 1.5% of the resources into underserved schools. We have 56% of our students economically disadvantaged, 15% exposed to community violence, 23% learning disabilities. So really, not only just taking and evaluating people's psychological evaluations, et cetera, but bringing those levels, de-aggregating those numbers, and looking at delivery and outcomes on a local level will help change outcomes in the achievement gap.
I think the achievement gap is directly related to economic realities. So if we look at housing instability, if we look at food insecurity, these are the services that we need to be addressing in order to close the achievement gap. We also need to look at the diversity of our teaching staff, and we need to change our exam school admission processes.
Schools are one part of the big constellation for families, so we need to push on every other front. Within the school system, the push should be to get the funding and the decision-making authority down to the school and classroom level and not keep it stuck in the bureaucracy of central administration. We have some structural issues across the district. The highest academic performers are scooped into exam schools. The next third are scooped into pilot schools, and then our open enrollment schools have a concentration of students with great need that we are not providing enough funding to address.
So I believe that we need more teacher of colors and counseling for the youth, because a lot of 71% of students in public school are really poor because sometimes they kind of like suffer with trauma. So we need a social workers to work with those students, and then we need kind of like assistant professor to work with those teachers, because they cannot do a lot of stuff by themselves because they have other things to do too. Well, if we help them out, and then I am more assistant professor and more counseling, more social worker, that would be good for the student.
In order to close the achievement gap in the Boston Public Schools, we need to make sure that we're providing a very rich and rigorous academic experience that all of our kids have the opportunity to access, and to make sure that we have the supportive services in all of our schools so that our children across our district can access that rigorous academic opportunity for our students. And we need to make sure that we have that full-time nurse, that we have that mental health professional, that we have the librarian, that we have music in our programs, that we have great science programs and math programs in all of our schools, and that kids on IEPs have access to appropriate supportive assistance.
Would concur with Anissa and add that student-teacher ratio to be more reflective of the needs of our children who are struggling academically, and also those wraparound services, stories that we hear of kids being bullied, kids going without meals, kids experiencing trauma at home. They're coming into school the next day, and I can tell you the last thing they're doing is learning sort of math, English, and science. They're worried about their next meal. They're worried about what happened at home the night before or what they witnessed out in the street. So those very precious wraparound services are needed, and also paying attention to our English language learners and making sure that they're on the path to success.
I believe that we should not be medicating our children in schools. I don't believe that's the right place to prescribe medication for our children. I believe that we also should look at the way our schools, our children come to school. A lot of them are traumatized. A lot of them have problems. Some of them don't get good food to eat. And I believe that we should really look at a way that we can do a better service to our children by
I think that we need to make sure that we're very intentional, particularly in terms of representation and the city's adherence to the consent decree that was issued years back relative to black and brown teachers. And not only just bringing them into the school and having them there in front of students, but also making sure that we're retaining them so that they can go on and persist and establish this type of school communities. But also we have to remember that it's not just what's happening inside, it's also what's happening outside. And we only need to look at what just happened yesterday with those unfortunate murders in Jamaica Plain just outside of a school to know that the impacts of what's happening across the city from policy level will have significant impacts on the students.
The answer I was going to give was best stated by Councilor Wu and Councilor-George. I'm glad they're on the council. I'm glad they're of like mind.
I think we need to stop teaching to a test and mold our students to be critical, creative, and independent thinkers. Not everybody is good test takers, and it all depends on what's going on in your life or what you just saw that morning, what frame of mind you're in. And I'd like to see more vocational programs, but get Madison Park restored to the school that the destination school that it once was.
I think we need to allow our Boston Public Schools to have more flexibility in their teaching style. As a charter school student for the first 8 years of my academic career, I can speak to the fact that my teachers for a long time were able to cater specifically to my individual learning style. I think we also need to erase the stigma around students with IEPs. I think we need to provide ELL, English language learners, with more resources so that they're able to keep up in the classroom. And I also think we need to bridge the gap between the local universities.
Okay. We're going to go quickly through 2 lightning round questions on education. So, and we'll go to the other side of Julia, so we'll start with Erin, and then why don't we go this way from Erin. So, Erin, this question has to do with exam school admission. So there was a study recently that showed that the current test used for admission to the exam schools, that's the same one used for independent or private schools, that switching from using that as a basis for admission to using MCAS scores would really change the composition of exam schools. In particular, it would significantly, I think, boost admission of Black and Latino students to Boston Latin School. Do you favor that change, or would you favor maintaining the current admission process?
Well, I'm not sure. I'd have to do a little more research, but I do know that all of our students in the Boston Public School take MCAS. So they automatically would have then taken the test, their scores would be. So to get accepted to an exam school, you have to show up on a Saturday morning and register for the other exam. So in that way, I think it would help make sure more Boston Public School students have access to the exam school.
I think you're saying
I'm not sure if
the
I would
MCAS.
change it, but definitely MCAS then would reach the students, because they're already taking it, so they wouldn't have to.
All right, we're going to go this way, and it was interesting, but this is the lightning round. So, would you favor changing the admission to MCAS or staying with the?
It's a big issue, definitely.
No, I understand.
More, but definitely MCAS.
Okay. So everyone else, don't take your cue from Erin. Speak shortly.
Okay. No. I favor changing it, but I also think that we need to, I'm going to say this really quick, is that we can't just be about exam schools. We need to recognize that all schools need to be up to par, so I think that we need to change the way we think about the exam schools, period.
Well, I would actually oppose both. I mean, I can remember coming out of middle school and going into high school. Those opportunities were never afforded.
All right, we're really going to run out of time because we have only half an hour and half the people have next
so
questions.
I would oppose both.
Okay.
I would tie it to the GPA.
Okay.
Can you tell me what the questions? I have no idea what you said.
Do you favor changing the process for admission to the exam school to use MCAS?
Leave Boston Latin School alone and make the rest of the school system like Boston Latin.
Yes, I would favor change to MCAS and increase responsibility, increase resources for ISE training for right now.
I would agree, but I also believe that we need to look at the way that we are teaching our children, especially around the MCAS and those tests. Some children are not, we're not going to.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but we just can't have people speak on the issue.
Keep all 3 exam school exams the way they are.
Thank you.
I'm not a proponent of the MCAS test as someone who has administered it, but I do think we need to study whether it's the ISE or the MCAS or a third test based on our curriculum.
I think I will leave it the way you are.
Change the test, either MCAS or Boston-based test.
Thank you.
Overhaul the whole system of exam score admissions.
I agree with Ali. Those exams, the MCAS is racially and socioeconomically biased. We need you to come along and partner with the council to figure out what we can do to make it more equitable.
Okay, so we've got one more quick lightning round. We'll start this time with Jeff, and we'll go this way. So Jeff, do you think are charter schools a net plus for public education in the city or a net detriment to it?
There are positive outcomes for charter schools, we can see that, but my position on that is that the state needs to fully fund them.
Okay, we know there are funding issues, and we know I'm just asking, have they been a net plus to the city
I think to
or
the
detriment?
district schools, in terms of funding, they've been negative towards the district schools.
Net detriment.
And I'm saying a net detriment to public education broadly for the city. Okay. Michel. Charter schools in Boston, have they been a net positive? Have they been a positive thing overall for the city, or have they been, on the whole, negative, their impact?
I think that I went to Boston Public School. I think it's not.
Okay.
Net minus.
Net plus, competition is good, it's healthy, it forces us to do better.
Negative.
Net detriment because of the conversations it fosters.
Public school kid, net plus.
Net detriment.
I'm a living testimony that it's a plus.
I have learned too much about the education system. I would say they're a net negative on our district schools.
Net detriment definitely to Boston Public Schools. There's positive outcomes for certain families who do go to charter schools, and many families choose that because public school isn't an option.
Okay. Marty, Keogh, what steps should the city be taking, concrete steps that you could point to address and reduce gun violence?
Well, appointing Willie Gross as the police commissioner was the best step they made. I think that the police are expanding their community policing into the neighborhoods. I think that's a great step also. But more needs to be done, and as I stated earlier, I'd like to see 200 more police on per year for the next 5 years that are reflective of the community, because I think the community doesn't trust their police force.
Thank you. Let's go this way. So David.
Yeah, I think that as far as getting guns off the street, we need to be doing everything that we can, and particularly lifting up the work of other actors outside of the police department. We have groups like Operation Lipstick, which are operational in our communities and doing incredible work to reach out to communities and provide safe pathways for folks to alert law enforcement about firearms and also getting them out of our streets.
I think we definitely should work with organizations that are doing this work and bring them to the table and have a real conversation with them, and also find funding to be able to help and support.
As a former prosecutor, the common denominator to the youth violent crime was hopelessness, substance abuse, and gangs. Improving the quality of our schools, creating more opportunity, particularly year-round job opportunity, and also youth sports is a way to get kids off the streets, off the corners, out of the gangs, and leading productive pathways to a successful life.
Some of the answers to gun violence in our city are certainly education and prevention. When we think about our young people and the impacts that violence has on our young people, we also know in the city of Boston, as the occurrence of violence increases, especially what we've seen over the last few months, is that the victims are older and older. We need to make sure that we have thoughtful employment and economic opportunity for all of our communities, and that we're partnering with the organizations that have demonstrated success in this work.
I believe that if we do not focus on the youth, there will be a lot of crime, because the youth are, because that we need a lot of program for them, and we need a lot of, because a lot of them kind of like suffer with depression, anxiety, and we need a lot of counseling, social worker to work with them, to understand them, to know that why they're doing that. And if we do not focus on them, nothing gonna change because they are the future, and we need to make sure that the youth have more jobs, and they have to learn about finance, they have to learn about art, and we have to get more funding for them. That's why I believe that will help the city.
Safe communities are founded on stable families, and so it's a whole constellation of housing and transportation and education and jobs, particularly when it comes to our young people. The city has been restricting the access to paid summer jobs over time with a smaller and smaller age range. We need to reverse that and expand it. We need resources to address trauma in our neighborhoods. The bottom line is, Boston is a small city. Everyone has to have a stake in what happens in every other neighborhood. The difference in reaction and mobilization and urgency when gun violence happens in certain parts of the city versus others, we have to change that.
So I think importantly is engaging community leaders and people most impacted by violence to bring them to the table to engage in the solutions. I also think, I agree that the economic opportunities for our young people need to be increased in order to be able to settle, to deal with the issue of youth jobs and not having the resources that they need. I think also early criminalization of our young men of color just causes a cycle. We need to look to the victims and their families, and we also need to look to the perpetrators of the crimes to figure out what are the real solutions on the streets.
I supported banning bump stocks and the extreme risk protection order, which allowed law enforcement and individuals to petition courts to get guns out of those homes. I've also been working with kids over at St. Peter's in Bowdoin, Geneva, and it's a new program that started up with Bets Israel, and it's about getting the kids into after-school programs, having them involved in the community decisions going forward. And we do all, as a community, need to take responsibility, be out there working with our youth across the city, doing this intervention, getting them the wraparound services.
I definitely think, like, hope. If people feel that they don't have hope, then oftentimes they turn to violence. So as a city, we need to make sure that there's the education, there's housing opportunities, there's jobs, and to really put support with the mental illness and trauma, because oftentimes gun violence is connected.
So as someone who like every day I feel like I'm dodging bullets, I think there's a lot of trauma that we experience. I think that this approach, actually in the 90s, I worked during the Boston Miracle. I don't know if you guys remember that. We were living here in Boston, but at the time they reported a lot of resources, and I did a lot of youth development work in that. I think we need to look back at that, but more importantly, there are a lot of community organizers and activists who are doing this work and are not part of the payroll, who have solutions, and I think that we need a community-wide approach to how we're going to address this situation so that it's community-centered and driven by those who are living the realities.
As I look around at this panel, I can honestly say that I'm the most impacted by this issue. I've actually been in the middle of gunfire. I've lost people both to imprisonment and to the grave because of this issue. I think that we need to get out in front of the issue and provide mediation services, conflict resolution, outlets for individuals that are either in gangs, that are carrying guns, that are involved in this type of activity. Nobody wants to be a perpetrator of gun violence. So I think that we need to get out ahead of the issue. And Frederick Douglass said something that's very important. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.
Yes. Yes.
I think we need to work on solving some of the issues of education, housing, and restoring that trust between the communities and the government, and then we can start to see some reduced violence. You know, you have to look at the reason why people resort to crime, and a lot of times you see that it's because of they feel that's how they need what they need to do to survive, and so expanding the gun buyback program to help put money in the hands of people, I think that'd go a long way.
All right, thanks. Michael Flaherty, this is on housing and the housing crisis. So there's really a big debate going on over whether we can largely address the housing crisis through very robust growth and development that dramatically increases the supply of new housing and tempers prices. or whether much more aggressive regulation should be the primary focus to get us there. What's your view on that?
It should all be on the table because there's not one clear-cut solution, whether it's IDP, the inclusionary zoning policy, whether it's increasing the linkage formula, it's asking developers to do more. It's the CPA, the Community Preservation Act, which just in the last 2 rounds of funding has been about $40 million, probably 25 of which has gone to the creation of affordable housing. So it's all fronts, including rent control as a possibility. So we need to do what we need to do to protect our citizens. Again, as I stated earlier, they've made the city the great city it is, and now they're being priced out. That's a problem. So every option is on the table to do the best we can. Housing is a human right, and we need to make sure that we're protecting it.
So I believe that there are definitely issues, and we definitely need to bring developers to the table to ensure that affordable housing is for us. And we do have the CPA. There are other programs, but it just seems not to be working. It just seems that people all over the city are being gentrified out. And we need to look at different ways that we can bring, like I said, developers to the table, even piloting the wood tax of some of the colleges that could go into affordable housing. So I would advocate for that.
I think addressing the housing issue requires a really robust, sweet, and a real honest conversation. Personally, I advocate for an increase in the inclusionary development practice till 20% at a minimum, with a conversation for it being a little bit larger. Around rent control, I know a lot of people are interested in discussing that. I think that needs to be included with other policies as well, not just on its own. But I think the other big piece of this conversation is that housing, much like transportation, is a regional issue. And so Boston, as the most impacted community, needs to be leading on it, but we need to be having these dialogues with our neighbors as well.
Mike, what's the question about? Is it rent control? I'm not really sure. Rent control?
No, the question is just to address the housing crisis. There's been sort of a debate about whether the primary focus should be aggressive growth and development to try to increase the supply, which would, in some people's minds, serve to temper prices, or should it be aggressive regulation?
Okay, well, great. This is obviously a matter of supply and demand. There's a lot more demand than there is supply out there, so that's going to cause housing to go up. But what we need to do to curb it is get the BPDA under control with their affordable housing. There should be a mission for them to create more affordable housing. I'd like to see the developers contribute more linkage funds to the city for affordable housing, and I'd also like to see the colleges and universities stop building affordable housing on their land. I mean, they have the pilot program, we really don't benefit by it, so why don't we start building affordable housing on their land? Because they've got plenty of it and they don't pay any taxes on it.
I support increasing IDP, inclusionary development, to 20 to 25%, and closing different loopholes that developers have. So if you have a building that has 8 units or less, you don't need to have any affordable units, and you can also pay into a fund so that you don't have to include any affordable units in your property. So increasing inclusionary development percentage and eliminating loopholes.
I think currently the Boston Planning and Development Agency holds developers to a 13% standard for their affordable housing. I definitely think that we can increase that. The city of Boston has families of 2 and 3 and 4 people in their household, so I think that percentage should reflect the types of families and the sizes of families that we see here in the city of Boston. It's not only about rent control, it's also about your tenant rights as well. If you're a tenant in a building and you don't have any rights, then you can always be moved out. So I think we need to revisit that as well.
So I always like to defer back to my own lived experience really quick. I didn't have housing stability until I was 10 years old, and I think that that's what I hear a lot from a lot of families here in the city of Boston even today. I think that if we're really gonna go bold, I think going from 13% to 50% in terms of IDP, so that at the very least we can get to 30 at the minimum. I also propose that we do not have any opt-out options. You should not be able to opt out of a building affordable housing. Affordable housing is supposed to be built, so let's build it. And the other piece that I would like to say is that you can't just build yourself out of this situation. We also have to think about how we're gonna make the housing that we already have affordable, which is one of the reasons why I support rent control.
So Definitely affordable housing as new development goes up, to look at increasing, like most of us have said, the 13%. But not everyone is in a position to buy a house, so I think the rent control is important. That I'm a renter, so we have to look at regulating rents also, because not everyone is in the market to buy, so that has to be looked at also.
I'm another one like Julia. We struggled a lot when I was growing up, and my mom was on public assistance, my two younger brothers. We didn't have access to affordable housing where I grew up. So that's very important. I think that with rent control, we need to be pragmatic about pushing that at state level. It was voted out. I think we need to start with rent control on folks over 65. And then when we talk about linkage legislation, we need to work to rewrite linkage legislation instead of concentrating affordable housing on certain neighborhoods. People don't work their way out of poverty when they're concentrated in certain neighborhoods. We need to work to redistribute affordable housing throughout the city so we have ethnic and socioeconomic equity throughout the city.
I think the steps that we take need to be aggressive. It's clear that we are living out a tale of two cities, and we have one city that's benefiting from this growth and another city that's being hurt from it. I think we need to increase IDP. The IDP percentage. We need to monitor our linkage fees and make sure they're being paid and increase them as well. We need to increase taxes on luxury sales, and we need to promote community land trusts.
Housing is one of the few places where, as a society, we both believe that it's a right, that people should have access to housing, to shelter, and yet we let it be treated as a for-profit. People invest in it, companies and developers make a lot of money off of it. We certainly see that happening in Boston today as prices are going up and people are benefiting from it who are not residents. So the government's role is to set the parameters around which supply and demand function. We have to protect our supply. The short-term rentals regulation was a big piece of that. We have to recognize there are different markets and target low-income and workforce housing, support transfer tax, public land regulations, community land trusts, and expansion of public housing.
I believe that we have to increase IDP, and I realize that me as a renter, so I'm kind of like suffer from that because we need more low-income housing, and we need to kind of like get rent control, and especially we need to make sure that all the colleges to be done for the student, because when students come from other countries and other states, they kind of went from, and then the landlord kind of increased those prices, and those people who live in Boston kind of suffer from that, and they have to move out from the city. We don't need that. We need them to make sure that they kind of build more dorm for them, for the people in Boston to not move out from the city.
The housing crisis in the city of Boston is caused by a number of things, and the supply, one would think, would help lower the cost of housing. But construction costs remain high across the city of Boston. And we have a tremendous need for an increase in the amount of family housing across our city. And it's also a regional problem, and as much as the mayor's administration has partnered with other local mayors on this crisis, Boston is the only one who seems to be building. We also need to make sure that we're creating affordable opportunities that reflect the AMI percentage that is actually affordable.
Thank you. So we're going to go to Michel Wu now for the next question. So we've talked a little bit about how the council doesn't have statutory power over certain things, but has a bully pulpit on city issues. The same you could really say is true in relation to the MBTA, something that we've been all focused on a lot in recent days. And so the question has to do with what is it that could be done, and let's just say over the next 12-month horizon, what could be put in place that isn't currently in the works or part of the plan that would make a meaningful difference to address the problems that we're all witnessing with the T?
Sure. So public transportation and transit is so fundamental. It's not just about reducing emissions. It's actually the most closely linked factor to economic mobility is your commute time to work. So it's all about shared prosperity. It's about our public health and the economy that in Greater Boston is being strangled by congestion right now. So what could we do in the next 12 months? Within the city's complete jurisdiction is how we design our streets for public transit. We need to vastly improve bus service, which the majority of Boston residents are on bus rather than other lines, by designating bus lanes, by changing the signal priority to allow for transit users to be going faster. We need to also improve cycling infrastructure and the connection to public transit, as well as pedestrian safety. We also need to have mitigation plans for the ongoing headaches of the red line, the derailments, and the entire system. It's impacting everyone. We need to seek revenue to fund transit to the level that we deserve, congestion pricing at the State House, gas tax, etc. And we need to talk about the T's governance structure, which expires in a year.
Yeah, let's go this way. Sure. Yeah.
So really, our issue of transportation is an equity issue. If you look, the difference between black riders spend 64 more hours per year on transit than white riders do. And it's 7 miles of roads in Boston where are holding back 90,000 of our riders due to congestion. I think some of the things that we need to implement quickly are rapid bus lanes, connecting bike lanes, congestion pricing, and we also have to look at other revenue building, so charging for permits and
I mean, I'm a proponent of multimodal transportation equity. We need to have a long-term vision when we're looking at places like Back Bay. We're doing development. We need to extend the boarding platforms. We need to look at Hyde Park and make sure that the boarding platforms are up at the same level as the train, so mobility challenged folks can get on and off, and we can accommodate more pedestrian and more users for the train and extend the length of some of those commuter routes.
Definitely trying to get from one neighborhood to another in the city could take you over an hour. And I often think, well, if I've been other places where the transit system is up and running so well that people don't want to get in their cars. People may bike ride, but it's not because they have to. So, and definitely think it's an equity issue. We need to fix the T so it's reliable for people, but also the other day when they said the red line broke down, that the fare to get an Uber, because it was $126. So not everyone can take an Uber, so that's not an option. And that just means more cars on the street. So the T needs to be fixed to help ease a lot of the traffic.
It feels like the Da Vinci Code trying to crack this one, right? I think that when I'm going to be really mindful because Jonas is trying to save some time. My colleagues have really already expanded on a lot of the things that I would say. The only thing that I would like to add and push is that in cities and neighborhoods like Rosendale, their transit system is not as frequent. I think that in Dorchester and Roxbury, Mattapan, especially in Mattapan more specifically, the buses take forever. I would definitely add more bus lanes. And then I think one of the things that we need to recognize that at the end of the day, the big dig was really the big dump, and we need to hold Charlie Baker accountable to that.
I have to be totally transparent in saying that I have a strong distaste for the MBTA. As a patron, as a longtime resident, I mean, I've rode the T from elementary school all the way up into high school, and I still ride it now. They've always hiked their fares. I remember back in 2013, when I was in aid in the House of Representatives, they asked the state for hundreds of millions of dollars and threatened to hike the fares if they didn't get what their budget request was. So I have a strong distaste for the MBTA. I do like that they're now pushing the Better Bus Initiative and that they're also bringing residents and community members as consultants to help them better develop their transit.
I'm going to echo fixing the MBTA. How are you going to have 2 derailments in a week and then raise fares? It makes no sense. But also just improving the infrastructure in the city, dedicated bus lanes during rush hour, expand that throughout the city. And then transportation isn't just an MBTA issue. Having protected bike lanes throughout the city and making sure pedestrians aren't getting hit by cars crossing the street, just making it safer to walk the city.
The number 1 and number 2 issues in the city of Boston that I've heard from the residents are traffic and development. And they go hand in hand. The bigger the development, the more cars, the more traffic. What the city council needs to do is we can try to hold Governor Baker accountable for the MBTA. They never listen to us anyway. what we can do is we can start putting smart lights in, redesigning our roadways so it accommodates more cars, more traffic, more parking, putting up more parking garages, and holding the BPDA and developers accountable for the plans they put forward without actually thinking about the neighborhood first.
I'm going to echo a lot of the sentiments around the MBTA. I think this is a conversation, once again, that has to happen both locally and regionally, and Boston needs to be leading that because we're the most affected. I also think the implementation of things like Vision Zero and keeping our streets safe is absolutely critically important, and how we're looking at how those funds are being invested, but also laying the groundwork, even within the 12-month period, for future developments. Things like real bus rapid transit. There was a trip that just went down to Mexico City and looked at how that can be implemented in a large urban environment. That's something that could really revolutionize many people's commutes, but also recognizing the fact that transportation is something that is different in different communities.
I agree with a lot has been said. The one thing I would like to see is maybe a community advisory board to come up with a study that we can look at and see exactly how transportation goes in our different communities. I would like to see it done by district. I also believe that if we look at the different ways that we can work with our MBTA, although the MBTA doesn't seem to want to work with us. However, I really believe that if we looked at a community advisory board and came up with some type of study, that we could create a better system.
The city of Boston pays over $85 million in local assessment, and what do we get for it? We don't get a seat on the board. We get fare increases. We have an unpredictable, unreliable service. We have bus accidents. We have train accidents. So it's time for us to put pressure to get a seat that makes those fiscal decisions. That, coupled with the protected bike lanes, as well as bus rapid transit where appropriate, and put pressure on developers and the new companies that are moving here to partner with us for these infrastructure upgrades. A lot of our street grids, roads, and bridges are in terrible condition and in need of capital investment, and we need their help.
A few more echoes. We certainly need a seat at the decision-making table. Our transportation system does not reflect and respond to the needs of our residents and commuters who come into the city of Boston. We do need to leverage our city's payment of $85 million to the state for the T in order to get that done. And it's not just about connecting our neighborhoods to the downtown. It's about connecting our neighborhoods to each other. Because it's not just about getting folks in town. It's about that circular connectivity that our neighborhoods need.
I believe that we have to have a study because the way that the transportation is really bad, because like you cannot take 1 hour to just, you can walk like maybe like 30 minutes, and then you take 1 hour driving to go to work. I think that we need to sit down with the MBTA and to see how we can work everything out. And I think that's the most important thing, because I think MBTA have the right, and I think that if we talk to them to see how we can make sure that the transportation is really reliable for everybody.
Okay, Michel, there are 140 languages spoken in Boston. What can the city do to reduce the barriers that language can play to people's ability to access information or services?
So I believe that as an immigrant, and the best way to connect the city with the to connect the city together, because like when I see like there are 139 countries, students from 139 countries, and I believe that for me, my plan is like to build a language library that will help the people to connect to each other, like with like culture, language, and literature. That's gonna help them out and to understand, because like I think that's the best way to connect the city together.
Yeah, let's go this way.
I think that one of the greatest assets that we have as a city is our cultural and linguistic differences across all of our neighborhoods, and then within each of those neighborhoods, there's a mosaic of all sorts of things happening. I grew up in a household that spoke French, Polish, and Arabic, and English, and I didn't get the language gene, so English is my language. But I think across our schools and across the government sector, we need to make sure that we're creating access to translation services, to communicate with residents, to communicate with visitors, and to communicate with our students. And then our students have the opportunity to learn to continue to communicate in a native or family language.
I think that's something the city of Boston does pretty good at. We have the Office of New Bostonians. I know with transliteration of ballots, we've led the effort, as well as what we translate for all of our Boston Public Schools students, as well as what the Elderly Commission does for our seniors. So we continue to make those efforts, we continue to make those strides, and we will continue to do so. So not completely perfect, but I know that we probably do it better than most cities. And I know that the council, under the leadership of former Council President Wu, led the effort as well, making sure that folks that were coming into City Hall, they knew that they were in the council chamber, they were invited, and we were providing translation services.
So I totally agree that we should definitely be able to help each person that has a language, different language than English, be able to understand, be able to read, be able to know where they're going, and I agree.
I'd love to see us starting with our youth and expanding the number of bilingual programs and employing the schools that we have. It's great to see that the Data Hunt is expanding a program in Haitian Creole. We know there are other programs that are happening, but we can do more, and we have more reflected, starting with that generation and building it, because that's really the next generation of Boston, and having them with more language fluency is critically important. Also making sure that, as has been echoed here, that all of our city services, and as we're looking to create our city workforce, that we're looking to make sure that we're including language and cultural competency as one of the key metrics in those hiring conversations and decisions.
In high school, and in my job as an attorney for a lot of people who get into trouble that don't speak the language well, I was able to learn a little bit of Spanish, a little bit of French, but not enough. But if there's 140 languages that we have to teach everybody in the city of Boston, never mind the Commonwealth, that's quite a big task. I think the Office of New Bostonians, we probably could increase some funding in there to enhance services for people who can't speak English or don't know our language yet.
I think when we do outreach and send out mailers and flyers for different community meetings and hearings, that we can have translations on those, and also have expand classes and have more programs for ELL.
I think the most obvious thing to do is to make sure that the folks that are employed and the folks that are working within our city reflect the languages, the culture, the ethnicity of the people that are in our community. When we talk about getting the information out there about city services and different things that are happening throughout our city, I think it's important that we include those people who speak those languages in the communication, in the outreach, in the marketing of all these different components of our city.
As someone, I came here at the age of 5. I learned how to speak English watching Sesame Street, and I became the official translator for my entire community. This question is really important to me. I think that Boston Public Schools can do a better job at making sure that we are offering translation at council meetings, at school site council meetings, and that we're engaging them in the Build BPS process. I also think we have an opportunity to tap into the wisdom that exists. How can we create economic opportunities to actually employ people in the neighborhoods to actually help with the translation services so that we're increasing economic mobility as well?
So I'll echo that. Definitely, I think the city is doing a good job with translation services. Technology could maybe be used more, but one place I see we could do a better job is in the schools. I know as a teacher that most things that go home are not translated. So if we tell families that their voice matters and we care about them, but then don't translate what is important and then question why they're not showing up for things, and when principals do all calls, there's in the office, there is an office there are services to help do that, but we have to make sure that anything that goes home is translated for families.
I was an auditory learner as a result of my learning disability, and so I learned French, Spanish, and Portuguese. I'm fluent in those languages. And when you learn a language, it's about love of that neighbor, love of that culture, love of that difference. And so as an immigration attorney and working with folks that struggled, it was part of a learning thing. And we need, not only when we're addressing trauma and counseling, to have the language capacity, but cultural competence.
So as the director of the Mayor's Office for Immigrant Advancement, we were co-authors of our communication and language access plan. I think we need to expand that office, expand the budget to that office, with special emphasis on public hearings and schools. I also think we need to expand to our quasi-governmental agencies like the BPDA and Boston Public Works. There are a lot of notices that go out that aren't translated and are not included within the ordinance currently.
We talk a lot about how to make Boston a world-class city, but the reality is that Boston is already a city of the world. We have so many residents from all different cultural backgrounds, and language access, communications access really empowers us to harness all of that talent. So I was proud to be the lead sponsor, work with our government operations chair, Councilor Flaherty, and then Director Alejandra and Guillen on the city's language access ordinance, codifying requirements for access both linguistically but also for assistive technology for those with a communications impairment. We need to do a lot more.
Okay. Priscilla, Flint-Banks, the less than 1% of city contracts we've read recently last year went to women and minority-owned businesses. What would you do as a city councilor to increase that percentage?
We definitely would look at increasing it by bringing, finding more of black and brown people who have businesses. It seems like the city's not really looking for them because we know that they are out there. So I would definitely, there is an organization called Beckman that has over 600 black and brown businesses on their website that anybody could go and look and see. So I definitely would look at that as one way. And also, why is that? I mean, really, we really have to look at that. And that's what I would definitely investigate and review and work with the rest of my city councilors on it.
Okay, let's go this way, David.
I think we need to have very real and candid conversations about what the city's procurement process is and changes that need to be made to allow for minority-owned businesses, particularly women-owned businesses, to grow and thrive. But I also think we need to expand that conversation. And one thing I would advocate for is in our conversations around pilot agreements, expanding the community benefits portion to incentivize our colleges, universities, and other large institutions to have procurement opportunities with minority-owned businesses, small businesses, LGBT-owned businesses, disabled-owned businesses as well, giving them an additional percentage for whatever they spend on top of that. This can be part of that benefit.
I was outraged and disgusted when I saw the disparity and inequity of the women and minority business-owned office there. If I get to City Hall, I plan on having a council hearing on it and to make it more equitable for everybody, every woman, every black person, every brown person, every white person.
I think we can use this as an opportunity to close that wealth gap. The average white family makes has a net worth of about $150,000, while the average black family has a net worth of about $8. You're spending millions of dollars in these communities, and none of that's going to the business owners in that community. That's a problem. We can use this to help get us and fix the wealth gap.
I think there are many black and brown and women-owned businesses that are doing great work throughout the city. I think, plain and simple, I think they just don't know that they can actually be a part of that, be a part of the bidding process, and that they can actually take on those contracts. I think we need to do more outreach. We need to provide them with those resources so that they can be included in the bidding process. And I'm not too knowledgeable on the bidding process, but I think that we could probably look at that to make sure that that's also inclusive and make sure that black businesses and women-owned businesses are getting a piece of the pie.
Just two things that I'd like to add. One is that we have an opportunity. There are a lot of empty businesses, storefronts right now. I look around Jamaica Plain, Roxbury. I think we have an opportunity to create some incentives for these empty businesses to actually open up their doors to allow small businesses to kind of incubate in their spaces. So how can we incentivize that? And then I also think that immigrants come to this country with a lot of skills, but oftentimes we end up in jobs that really don't match our skill set. How can we be more creative in making sure that people who are coming to this country are able to utilize their skills to grow their businesses?
So when you see that the percentage is 1%, it's like more than shocking, right? It's not just 20, 40. So one thing Herb said I definitely agree with is that do they not know that the process, and can we do workshops and community outreach to women and minorities so that they know how and help them through filling out the forms and knowing which jobs to bid on and the timelines, because somehow they're being left out and they don't know that opportunity is there. And I think it ties into also the VOTech schools, that if we have our city children knowing that the trades are a school, that they can run businesses and be a part of that also.
Some of you heard me talk about this in the past, but in Ward 9 we had hearings around the struggles that businesses faced, either starting up or failing, and getting them legal wraparound services. And so we worked on that initiative with Michel prior to the time the mayor did it as an executive order. And we knew we'd have a B2B pipeline issue. So one of the things that we talk about is 3,500 MBE certified businesses. What we really need to look at is we need to look at the $660 million that we're spending and make sure that we're looking at the buying power and what services we're buying, and certify the businesses that we can connect with the actual needs of the city.
So I think, importantly, the leadership of the City Council is really what brought to light these numbers. We've known these numbers for a long time, but it really takes City Council to have really strong oversight on that. I think we need to hold department heads responsible. As a department head, I made sure that those that were bidding were included women and minority-owned businesses, and if they did, I put that bid back out to bid. I think we need to break down the large contracts, because if there aren't enough businesses owned by people of color and women to bid for the big projects, and they need to be able to break down the small projects, and we need to demystify the bidding process altogether.
Hugely disparate number compared to what our goals are around addressing closing the racial wealth gap and investing in the city. What can the council do about it? We can set the rules, we can monitor the data, and we can increase access to opportunity. I was proud to author the ordinance alongside then Councilor Ayanna Pressley, and then to exercise our oversight function with Councilor Kim Janey to use our subpoena power to get the data, then have a hearing on it. What can we do now to increase access? Two things I would suggest: a buying plan. There's no transparency around when the city's needs are at what time of year. Multi-year contracts, you can only go on every single day and see what's available in that moment. And the second one was simplify the process, 70+ page applications every single time you apply compared to the state's process.
I believe that if we give people of color more access to open business in this city, that would be great. And there are a lot of immigrants like me who love to do business, and they don't have access, they don't know what to do, they don't know where to find the resources. So if we can give them the resources what to do, what to do, where to open the business, I think that would be a great thing for them, because more people of color are poor than the white people, so I think that we need to balance that.
One of the things that we should be doing through our Office of Economic Development in particular is supporting small businesses through technical assistance, helping them strengthen, helping them find access to capital, help them build stronger and more thoughtful business plans. And then we also need to support them through the process of becoming qualified as minority women-owned businesses. We also have to break up those contracts so they're easier to access. We have to make sure that we're using our own residents, our greatest asset here in the city of Boston. I ran the city's first ever Needle Take Back Day, a citywide effort, and I used the graphics office at Madison Park. Our kids, our city's kids, were able to access that opportunity and got paid for it.
As Chair of Government Operations, I chaired the latest hearing, and we heard a number of different responses from folks who were not aware of the contract opportunities, to others that felt that the process was onerous and burdensome. As my colleague said, it's a 70-page application process. For the bigger contracts, they didn't have the back office support to compete for them, and for the smaller contracts, the profit margin was so thin, it just wasn't worth their while to go through this onerous and burdensome process. So clearly, we have the data now. Moving forward, we can and must do better.
Okay, so the last question is for William King, and I'm being barraged with messages about how over time we're going here. So there'll be extra points, maybe extra votes even, for brevity among people. And I'm also being asked to sort of give forewarning that instead of for closing statements, if you can think of your most pithy one-sentence declarative statement you can make for a closing to say, I hope you'll support me because, so that would be much appreciated. And again, I think brevity will be rewarded on September 24th by voters. So William, vocational technical education has been heralded as an underappreciated shining star across the state. And there are a number of Voc Tech schools that have come in for wide praise. People might remember that Worcester's Voc Tech school even earned a visit from President Obama, who was the commencement speaker there 5 years ago. Sadly, we have not seen that kind of praise or acclaim for our school, Madison Park. And it has hundreds of empty seats. It struggled for years with low achievement. It's seen a revolving door of school leadership. So what's the fix for Madison Park, which I think most people would agree could serve a critical, important role in the city, but hasn't really come anywhere near living up to that promise?
I think it needs the funding. I mean, it's a Tier 4 school right now, and
has it been underfunded though? I mean, is that the issue?
I believe so. I believe that we don't emphasize trade-in vocational programs as much as we used to anymore. We're always told, like, you're going to college. College isn't for everybody. Either you can't afford it or it's just not for you. I think that we need to, once you enter high school and you start to come up with a plan, and that's a career path or a college path. And so with Madison Park, it's just, you shouldn't have to fail to succeed. And we need to get the funding there, revamp their trade programs, and just market it as a destination school that it once was, so that kids know that trade programs are nothing to be ashamed of. Like, those are some of the most hardworking jobs and some of the most important jobs. So, we need to restore Madison Park to what it was.
Okay, Herb, we'll go that way. What's the fix for Madison Park?
I think we need to develop partnerships with some of the local trade unions, as well as some of the large corporations that are here in our city. I think that it would do a great benefit to our students if they're getting skill development training, if they're getting professional development training. I personally developed a job training program where last year we got 25 members into Local 103 who are first-year apprentices. As of today, we actually enrolled another 35 members into Local 103 who will be taking on the apprenticeship program. Those are record-breaking numbers, so I think we need to do more of that. We need to open up those gateways and afford those opportunities to Madison Park students.
I'm going to earn some votes on this one. I'm going to keep it brief. I agree with what everyone else has said and probably most likely say, because we need to support vocational. So much for my votes, right, Erin?
There you go. I love it. So as a daughter, granddaughter, many family members are union workers, laborers. I feel that I know that Boston has always only valued their exam schools. So there's been stigma associated to going to a Voc Tech. So if you're a mom and your kid's choosing that, you didn't always want to even share that with people. And I know people who left Madison Park can't give them what they need, so we pay for them to go to South Shore Voc Tech, North Shore Aggie. So that is not acceptable. We have cranes all over the city. We have resources. Our Voc Tech should be world class. And we should have proud students and families going there. We, as a community, should support it.
Yeah, we have a Polytech, Worcester Polytech, which is a successful trades program, and I know that Anissa, Essaibi-George, and Michael Flaherty have been out there looking at that, seeing ways that we can make Madison Park mimic that. So one of the things we have to do, definitely destigmatize the idea that kids going into trades. The news over the last couple of years has not helped with that, and making sure that we partner with the trades to get kids in. Reopening the culinary arts program was something I advocated for last time. The Democratic State Committee then patronized that system to get kids into the state committee and sort of nurture those children, and I think there's a lot that we can do. But making it mirror what people are, Worcester, Polytech, and kids choosing the opportunity together right now, they're assigned.
So, Boston is a place where people come from all over the world to solve big problems here, right? They come to study here, work here, and solve big problems. If there's any city in the world that should be able to get their voctech correct, it's Boston. I think we do those partnerships with the trades, with the corporations, with the universities, and we also have to look at the jobs of the future. The jobs of the future are very much aligned within the middle skill jobs. So those are jobs that you get with training. You don't need you don't need university education. And so if we align the curriculum of Madison Park with those middle school jobs that are going to be looking for workers, I think we'll have a more successful school.
I love that we're answering this question in this space and at this institution. Vocational education is really the pathway that's going to provide opportunity for students and young people in an economy that is increasingly loading them with student debt, increasingly providing greater barriers to accessing opportunity. I was proud to follow in President Obama's footsteps with Councilor Essaibi-George and Councilor Denis as we partnered on vocational education in Madison Park, went out to visit Worcester Tech. We needed an admissions policy for Madison Park because students are not asked if they even want to be vocational ed students. We need more pride in the school and investment in facilities.
I believe that we have to fund more for the vocational school. We have to partner with a lot of universities once they bunker here. And there's the university or the school, and we have to get more program for them, more training for the kids. And I think that a lot of them, when they graduate from high school, they have nothing to do. So if we help them out in school and get more skill, and that would be able to help them to get better job and to support themselves.
I love talking about Madison, so I'm going to go quick. I was actually there this morning with breakfast for a number of private partners who are looking to invest at Madison. I spent countless times there visiting with the kids, with the school staff, with families, with the friends of. I've met with the statewide leaders of all vocational ed programs here in the state to talk about Madison. We need a real investment from the city of Boston, something I've asked for. We've held hearings on. The state dollars bypass Madison Park and go right to the Boston Public Schools. We need to change that. We need a real application process and to prioritize those kids on our work sites across the city of Boston, not just in the trades.
It starts with school assignments. School assignments broken not just for Madison Park, but for other schools. We have kids that want to go to Madison and can't get in, and we have kids that are assigned to Madison that don't want to be there. That's issue number one. And we have sort of pride of the CommonWealth, which is out of Worcester. No reason why we could not replicate that program and be the best in trades. I've met so many folks that said if I was at Boston Tech, they'd be dead in the jail, and they say that with pride. We have an opportunity, given the economic boom here and given our partnership with our trades, to make this one of the best schools in the country, if not the world.
Well, Madison Park has been going through changes for a while, and I don't really understand why. However, if there was a program that the unions and the developers would recruit directly from Madison Park, I think that would definitely help Madison Park. The unions and developers recruit from Madison Park.
I think that the things that have been echoed around changes to the curriculum and the assignment process for Madison Park are absolutely critical, but I also think that we have the opportunity to use Madison Park really as the tip of the spear in some of the other issues that we're facing here in the city. We're facing significant issues around climate resiliency, climate change, and the impact as a coastal city. Madison Park should be the leader, both locally as well as across the Commonwealth, and hopefully across the country, in green development, green jobs, and how we're making more resilient communities. Our kids should be at the forefront of all of that, because those are the jobs that are going to be needed, not just in the near future.
True Bostonians will remember what I'm about to say. My dad went to Commerce High School. My brothers, my family went to Boston Tech. I would advocate for putting more money into Madison Park, but I ran on this pledge 6 years ago that we create a public-private partnership between all of the unions and the Boston Public Schools to create trade schools. I read the other day in the plumbers make, I think, more than the members of the city council right now. So it's I don't know why anyone would say it's a stigma to go into a trade union. But my name is Martin Keogh. I'm running for city council. I'm asking 24 votes. I got here late, so you don't know a lot about me. I'll go check up my webpage. Thank you.
Okay, so we have come to the end of this marathon session. We're going to do quick closing statements. I know we said initially 30 seconds, but there'll be extra points for every second short of that. And we're going to start in alphabetical order, but we're going to go this way, so we'll start with Michel and move down in this order.
As an immigrant, so I understand the issue in Boston because Boston is really diverse, and I think that if I get elected, I'm gonna work with other city council to make sure that the city is a good place. And I believe that if we get more students, and we have more people to work with the churches to know about the climate change, and that would, because the climate change is really affect the country right now, and we need more.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Anissa Essaibi-George. I'm very proud to serve as one of your at-large city councilors while on the council, and currently I chair the Committee on Education, applying my 13 years of classroom experience to the job. I also chair the Committee on Homelessness, Mental Health, and Recovery. I apply my teaching job, my business school. I own a small business in Dorchester, and my husband and I have 4 kids. I take all of those experiences and apply them every single day to the work of the City Council. Happy to do it and hope to have the opportunity to return. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael Flaherty, asking for one of your 4 votes when you go to the polls on September 24th. Experienced City Councilor. I know the city, I know the neighborhoods. Born and raised here, born in public housing, raised my family here, sent my children to Boston Public Schools. Proud to serve as your at-large representative. Would love an opportunity to go back for 2 more years. Please consider me and go to the website www.michaelflaherty.com. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. My name is Priscilla Flint-Banks, and I would like one of your 4 at-large votes. I have worked in this city. I was born and raised in this city. I have created organizations that are about job creation, around gentrification, stopping the violence. I ask for your vote on September 24th. There's a lot of changes that need to be made in Boston, and I believe that if I am elected as one of your 4 at-large city councils, I can help make the change. Thank you.
So good evening again, everyone. I thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Once again, my name is David Halbert, and I'm looking to be one of your next Boston City Councilors at large. I want to put my 15 years of public sector experience, my lifetime of public service and civic organizations, my academic background, having a master's degree in public administration, and so many others to work not just as your city councilor, but as your partner. Because at the end of the day, it's not about me, and it's not about having my name on the ballot or anything like that, but this is being the most effective steward possible for the future of this city, for everyone in this room and all the children around. Thank you.
Thank you again. I'm Martin Keogh. I'll make this really quick. I was born in the Mission Hill projects. I grew up in Hyde Park. I lived in West Rochford. My parents divorced when I was very young. My grades went down at school. I dropped out. I got into trouble. I got my GED, went to college, went to law school. I became a lawyer to help troubled kids like me that deserve a second chance. I'm a lawyer. I am the president of my civic association in West Roxbury, but most of all, I'm proud to say that I'm a dad of 2 young children. What I'd like my kids to have is what I had growing up in Boston. It's the great memories of growing up. But unfortunately, I don't think my kids are going to be able to get that because they're going to be priced out of the city. So I'm running to provide a future for my kids and for your kids.
Thank you, everyone. My name is William King. I'm Boston grown. I'm born and raised here. I'm a product of the Boston Public Schools. I represent a new and unique voice for Boston. I respectfully ask for one of your 4 votes for City Councilor-At-Large. I ask you to visit my website, williamkingforboston.com, get involved, help out. Thank you.
As you may have noticed, I've stood up every single time. And that's what I plan to do. I plan to stand with you all and actually back that up with real action. This is not about me becoming city council at large. It's about me representing you and actually putting action behind it. This is about our well-being. This is about our standard of living, our quality of living. So I ask that you give me one of your 4 votes as Boston City Council at large. Thank you.
Thank you you for hosting. As the first person in my family to graduate high school, college, buy a house, representing in this space and being here, it's one of those things that, I never thought I would be here, but I'm here now. I was raised by a mother who was undocumented for a period of time. My lived experience and my professional experience in creating spaces for those who are most impacted to inform decision makers is what drives me in this work. If you hire me, I'm asking for one of your 4 votes. Trust that I'm always going to be about the people because, again, nothing about us without us is for us, and I've created my platform with the people.
Thank you so much for coming out and staying. I'm respectfully asking for one of your 4 votes. You can trust me, and I will be a voice for everyone because I have lived through the struggles and a lot of the things that our residents suffer every day. So please remember me.
My name is, Erin's great. I love being on the campaign trail with everyone, but my name's Jeff Ross. I'm a longtime community activist. I fought for over 10 years to incorporate the gay community in St. Patrick's Day Parade. Eddie Flynn, who's sitting here, was that deciding vote. I'm going to continue to fight. We need to be a city that continues to open doors for those who come after us and look back and be a city of opportunity. We are the campaign of second chances. We are a city where the grandson of a dock worker got president of the United States, and perhaps the gay son of a waitress can get elected to the Boston City Council.
Good evening. Thank you all so much. Thank you for staying. My name is Alejandra, and I respectfully ask for one of your 4 votes on September 24th. I have spent my entire career in service to others. I've been a teacher, I've been an advocate, and I've been a public servant. And I believe my experiences, both inside and outside government, put me in a unique position to really hit the ground running on day one and work in true partnership to solutions to promote equity across the entire city. Thank you.
Thank you all for hanging in. My name is Michel Wu, and I ask for your vote because this moment, maybe more than any other moment in our history, is what will define the future that our kids and grandkids will inherit. And this moment depends on cities to step up with progressive, urgent action. The way we do that is to empower every resident to have a voice, to connect, activism, to change. So I ask for your partnership in pushing Boston to lead. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. This has been great. I hope people have learned something. I appreciate everybody sticking in. Just give me 10 seconds. I'll see how fast I can do it. So first of all, I'm told that striking while the iron's hot and the memories of what people have said are fresh. The Ward 5 Democrats are